Page 84. Take a seat, Rebecca. We're starting. Thank you. Okay. Let's begin with a short introduction before we jump in. The topic obviously is Hanukkah. Before we get to Hanukkah, we have to go back because the whole Hanukkah story was actually prophesied by Yaakov. And I'm going to talk briefly about the four exiles. The four exiles the Jewish people went through, because we're about to discuss the third of the fourth. The Jewish people went through four galuts. Okay, the four exiles. That's going to be the introduction over here. And let's go back to the time of Yaakov. Yaakov, we know, had to flee from his twin brother Esav. He went and he traveled to his uncle. On the way, he stopped upon the mountain of Mount Moriah, which was the place where his grandfather brought his father Avram, brought Yitzchak, to the Akedah, to the binding down. When he got there, he put his head down and he went to sleep. Rashi points out over there that he slept then, but he hadn't slept for many, many years before because he'd been learning full time. And this was the first time he actually got a proper night's rest. Actually, he wasn't even going to, but Hashem brought the sun down. It was a whole miracle. And he dreamt, and in the dream he saw a ladder. Jacob saw a ladder, right, known as the Sulam, the Jacob's ladder, right, the Sulam. And the ladder was going from earth to Shemayim. And on the ladder, what did he see? He saw angels, malachim. There were angels on the ladder. And the angels were doing what exactly, pray tell? We did this already, right? We discussed in this class? Yeah. They were going up and they were going down. Oh, we mentioned it in relation to Yom Kippur. Okay. Let's have a look at a bit more detail over here. They were Oilim Yordim, right. Somebody please tell me what was unusual about this. We mentioned this before in the class. The fact they were going up and down, Olim Yordim. What should have they been doing? They should have been going. Oilim is to go. First they were going up, the angels, and then they were going down. We discussed this already. They were going up and down. So the commentators jump on this about what do you mean going up and down? Angels are in the heavens. They should be going down and up. It's the wrong way around. What was the answer over here? These were the escorting angels. Okay, we discussed that. What I want to discuss now, not in relation to Yom Kippur, which was an interesting discussion of remember where you're going is where you are. Remember that whole thing we did? What we're going to discuss now, however, are the amount of rungs that these angels, and the number of angels. There were four angels that Yaakov saw, and each one of these four angels represented four of the galuts, four of the exiles the Jewish people would go through. What are the four exiles of the Jewish people? Let's go through. The four exiles the Jewish people have gone through. Number one, you got to know this. Egypt is not actually one of them. Egypt represents all of them in some way, but Egypt occurred before the Jewish people. Mitzrayim, before the Jewish people became the Jewish people. So that's actually not included in the four. However, within Egypt you see all the others as well. Bavel, the Babylonian one. Number one is Bavel, that's correct. The Babylonian exile is number one. Right? Number two. Right, so the number two actually is Paras, which is the Persian one. Not the Great Neck one. That's still happening. No, this is the Paras and Madai, the Persian and Median one. Right, this is Persian / the Median. Right, Madai was another nation. Number three is Yavan. That's the Greek exile, of which our course, we're going to be focusing on this third one, actually, for the next couple of weeks. And finally we have Rome, that's correct. Right? We have Roman exile. Okay, those are the four exiles. There is another opinion, not for now. Interesting that they're actually going to be a fifth exile, the exile of Adam, Yishmael for the end of days, but that's not for now, that's the Mashiach course. Okay. So Yaakov saw these four and he became very, very scared at some point. Why? because he saw the Babylonian angels were going up, and they were going up only 70 rungs. This was 70 rungs, and they came down. And these 70 rungs refers to 70 years. So he saw that this exile was going to last for 70 years. They went up 70 rungs and came down. And he said, oh, that's how long that was going to last. Then he saw the Persian and Median one. And he saw that was... was 52 rungs. Sorry, I should have known that. 52 rungs represent 52 years. Okay, that was 52. Then he saw the Greek one, and he saw the angel going up 130 rungs, then descending. So this Greek one was 130, which is 130 years. And finally, he saw the Roman one was going up and not coming down. It was indefinite. As Yaakov saw it, this made him panic, because he said, how long is it going to last? And the answer was, they will eventually come down. All four came down, but this one was going to go on and on and on. However, he was guaranteed that even this fourth exile that we're in today was eventually going to come to an end. So these are the rungs he went up. And we see that based upon this, for the time of Yaakov, these galuts, these exiles, were going to happen. That's the Babylonian one, Nebuchadnezzar. This is Paras and Madai, that's Achashverosh and the whole Purim story. This is Yavan, the Greek that we'll focus on. And the Roman one ended up. Now, this first one was the destruction of the first temple. So the Jews were exiled. The Jews were exiled from the land. This one over here, this one over here is the Jews' exile, because this is the second temple destruction. So both the first and the fourth end up with destruction. Okay? This is the first temple's destruction. And we'll do dates in a little while. This is the second temple's destruction. So what was actually happening over here? So the Greek exile is very, very unusual. The Jewish people were in Eretz Yisrael. They were in the land. Okay? They remained in Israel. All the action that occurred with the Greeks, as we're going to see, occurred with the Jewish people, remained in the land. Well, 1 minute. This is called a galut. If this is galut, and galut means exile, then how can we still be in the land? Exile means you're kicked out of the land. And the answer is not necessarily. A nation can be inside the land. They can have a conquering nation come into the land. In this case, the Assyrian Greeks, as we're going to see. And at the same time, Hashem Shechina, as it were, Hashem is exiled from them. They're under conquest, and it's still considered a galut, which means you can be in Israel and as a nation and still be in galut. The temple is still standing in Yerushalayim, and we're still in exile. Hashem Shechina is exiled from us. So even though here, number 3, we were in Israel, there was no destruction at this point. It was another 200 years before the Romans turned up and destroyed the temple. Even though we're in Israel, you're still in a state of galut. Many years later, Daniel, the prophet, who had a prophecy and prophesied that actually these 4 exiles, he saw them like Yaakov, his ancestor, but he saw them as 4 beasts, 4 animals. He saw them as 4 animals. That's how they were revealed to him. Okay? These 4 exiles to Daniel, the prophet, came as 4 beasts. And if you look at the book of Daniel, it discusses it each in detail. The first beast represented the exile of Bavel, and he saw it as a, so this is number 1, this is the Bavel, yeah? Follow with me. He saw it as a lion. Okay? He saw it as a lion. That was the metaphor that was revealed to him. And it had tremendous power. And the lion actually had eagle's wings. So he saw it as a lion with eagle's wings. And obviously the lion is the metaphor for the Babylonian royal empire. It was a very strong, the lion is seen as the strong animal. And the wings of the eagles represent the great speed by which they came through and they destroyed the first temple of Shlomo HaMelech, by Nebuchadnezzar. So that's how he saw it. It's a lot more detail, but that's pretty much it. The second beast that he saw represented and then they saw various things happen to it. The wings were plucked and various things were taken. The second one, however, the Persian Median one, he saw as a bear. So Paras, he saw as a bear. Okay, and here, so the bear is obviously a strong animal, but they're not as light and not as fast and not as royal as the lion. This represented Achashverosh, and in that case, he saw them as a not fast creature particularly, not as fast as the lion, and a low one. In its mouth, it had between its teeth 3 ribs. So he saw it, right? He saw 3 ribs in its mouth. And these 3 ribs, say Chazal, represent 3 different kings: Cyrus, Achashverosh, and Darius. Okay? So they represent 3 rulers: Cyrus, Achashverosh, and Darius. Darius was his son, who ended up permitted the building of the second temple. That was the end of that particular exile. Okay? Cyrus the first one.
Was he the nice one then?
Yeah, well, he actually permitted the Jewish people to build the second. They didn't get a chance to do it, but on Darius they did. Okay? The third beast, which is our beast that we're going to look into, obviously, right, was the Yavan beast, says Daniel the prophet. And this one was represented as a leopard. This is how he saw it, as a leopard. Okay? And the leopard had 4 heads and 4 wings growing out of its back. So 4 heads and 4 wings. Okay, so once again, the leopard is a fast creature, and the leopard represented Alexander the Great. Alexander of Macedonia, who is going to have a big role in the Greek story. Okay, this is Alexander the Great, was the leader. Interestingly, Alexander the Great, we're going to see a little bit about him. We're going to see the Gemara is going to speak about it. I have Josephus as well. We're going to talk about his entry into the land of Israel. He died very young, but he was considered a great leader and conqueror. And he actually had a very positive relationship with the Jewish people. Okay? A very positive relationship with the Jewish people. So much so that I believe the year of his conquest, or soon thereafter, any male baby that was born among the Jewish people was given the name Alexander, which is why you see in many Jewish communities the name Alex is very, very prominent. Right? You'll see the name Alex. That could well be because their great-great-great-great-grandfather was a baby at this time and was named Alex, and has just been passed down over the years. Or it could be they're Russian and they like the name Alex. I don't know. It really depends, Okay. So he was a leopard. He went in. We're going to see he conquered most of Asia in one continuous swoop, just like a ferocious leopard, okay, with great speed, because obviously a very, very fast creature. And he died at a very young age, at the age of 32 years old. How he did all that at 32 years, I have no clue. 4 generals, we're going to see, took over from Alexander the Great, and they divided the empire. These generals, we're going to see who they are. We have Ptolemy took Egypt, Seleucus, Assyria, Antigonus, and Philip, Alexander's brother, took Macedonia. Right, so these 4, we're going to go through those 4 in more detail and what position they had. Eventually, the Greeks came in, we're going to see, to the temple, and they defiled the temple. Why they went to the temple and did that, as opposed to going to the Jewish houses, we will see. The 4th exile, however, was a terrifying creature. The 4th beast he saw was really, he describes it as a terrifying creature. This one really scared him as well. So just like Yaakov, just like Jacob got terrified when he saw the 4th exile of Edom, the Roman exile, he too saw it, and in it he saw a creature with tremendous strength. It wasn't actually even an animal that we know. He describes it as a beast which was terrifying, right? It had metal iron teeth and 10 horns. When I was a kid, I actually bought it, we used to have this book which had drawings, right? It was like a midrash says of these creatures, and I used to be terrified to look at their terrifying creatures, right? I was very, very scared. These 10 horn represents the 10 different Roman emperors, okay? The Julius Caesar, Augustus, Tiberius, Caligula, Claudius, Nero, Galba, Othus, Vitellius, Vespasian. Write that down. I'm only kidding.
What's a beast?
Okay. Sorry, beast.
Oh,
Beast.
What beast
Sorry.
is it?
Beast. Sorry. I'm sorry.
It's okay.
It's not good. Beast. Yeah. Okay, I was about beast with teeth, I wrote. Iron teeth and had 10 horns. And these 10 horns represented these 10 seasons the Jewish people had to get into. There is an opinion that says there's a fifth exile, the exile of today. However, that's not for this course. That's for another time. Okay? So let's go to page 84 and let's delve into this third exile. Yeah?
Were these beasts the ones that were created in the Twilight Zone?
This is no.
No.
No. These are just a vision that Daniel had, and he saw them appear this way. And this is all prophecy about the future exiles the Jewish people would end up in over the millennia. Okay, got this all down? Are we good? Yeah?
Mm-hmm.
All right. Very good.
What's the connection with the ladder? What was that in the beginning?
So the ladder represented the connection between Shemayim Ba'aretz, heavens and earth. That's how it was represented to Yaakov. Okay, why a ladder is an interesting question, but that's not for now, but it's an interesting question. Okay, so we finished our 4 angels, what they were doing, why they were going up and down. Let's turn to page 84 and let's begin a brief history of Hanukkah. Okay, so let's start with a timeline over here. So we have the year 353 BCE. Okay, that is the building of the Second Temple. Okay, Second Temple is built. Okay, that's after the Jewish people returned, the ones that did, after the falling of Achashverosh allowed the Jewish people to go in, Dariavesh, to build the Second Temple. Okay, by 319 BCE. We'll do this in more detail, obviously. We now have the beginning of the Greek era, right? The Greeks, we'll see why, entered into the Middle East and came into Israel, and they started to take control of the entire area. 199 BCE. Okay, Antiochus III, right? The ruler controls Israel. So Antiochus III comes, takes control of Israel. Right? Because we said there were brothers who took over from Alexander the Great. By 168, that's the key year, BCE, we have the temple is desecrated by, 175, I apologize. 175 BCE, I missed one, I apologize. By 175 BCE, Antiochus IV reigns. He's going to be the troublemaker. Antiochus IV. Okay, he takes control over Israel. By 168, we have the temple is desecrated by Antiochus. So he desecrates the temple. Why, we shall be discussing. Okay, so he's the main character, Antiochus IV. Okay, then we have 165 BCE. So that's a few years later. We have the conquest of the temple by the Hashmonaim. So the Hasmoneans go in. This is a band of Kohanim priests, and 3 years after the temple is desecrated, and we'll see it will turn into a gymnasium, they brought a Avodah Zarah inside. At that point, they defiled it, they return inside, and that's the miracle of Hanukkah. Okay, so this is the key year we need to have, because that's when the whole story comes to an apex, and then it goes down afterwards. We have 140. Okay, to 36 BCE is the Hashmonaim rule. They're going to rule Israel. Eventually this goes to the Roman governors very later, and by the 68 CE, the Romans are going to take over and finish off what the Greeks wanted to do, and they destroyed the temple. Okay? They're going to destroy it. So we had a couple of 100 years in between the whole Greek episode, the recapturing of the temple, and the Romans coming and destroying it. Okay? So those were not easy years. Okay, so now let's jump in for a minute. We're going to come back to this, but now I want to come in and I want to laser. Are you with me so far? Everyone, go stick with me over here. Go jumping around a lot. I want to come over here and try to figure out what happened in 165 BCE. And that is the question of the Gemara in Shabbat. Okay, the story, there's no particular tractate for the laws of Hanukkah, unlike Megillah. However, it is described briefly in the tractate of Shabbat. What is the connection between Shabbat and Hanukkah? We have to see why this whole story of Hanukkah mentioned in the tractate that deals with Shabbat. What's the connection over there? Well, light, right? The Shabbat lights and the Hanukkah lights. Okay, we're going to see the main mitzvah of Hanukkah. We're going to see why as well. That particular mitzvah is going to be the Hanukkah lights. But first of all, the Gemara has a very, very unusual question. The question of the Gemara is, my Hanukkah. What's Hanukkah? Like, what do you mean, what's Hanukkah? We all buy presents for each other and light candles in the window. And the Gemara's like, yeah, but how do we get to that point? What actually happened that we have this holiday? How do we create a brand new holiday? And we had the same question last semester, those who are with me, when we talked about Purim. What happened in Purim? Well, Purim has a whole tractate. It has a whole Megillah that describes a story. But there is no Megillah for the book of Hanukkah. So the Gemara wants to know what happened exactly. What is the story all about? So let's have a look at the question of the Gemara, and we'll look at the answer, and then we'll look at the Rambam. A very simple and descriptive Gemara, if not a little cryptic. My Hanukkah. What exactly is Hanukkah? Says the Gemara in answer. Let me tell you what this holiday is all about. Shenichnasu hayavanim, when the Greeks entered lehechal, into the holy sanctuary, the temple, timu kol hashmanim, they defiled, they made tameh all the oil that was inside the temple. Shebehechal, ukeshegavra malchut beit Chashmonai, and then, as we know, a few years later, when the group, a family called the Hasmoneans, the Chashmonaim, they went, a royal family, they went inside and they conquered, they fought back the Greek army who were present in Jerusalem, and they routed them. It was guerrilla warfare. They went in, they routed this army, v'nitzchum, and they won. They managed to do it. Badku, so they started to check. V'lo matzu ela pachacha, they found one little vial, one little cup of oil, echad, shel shemen, of oil, because this was the oil that was used to light the menorah. Right? Every day the high priest would fill up these bulbs, and they wanted to light the menorah. So what happened was they went hunting, and they found one jar of oil. Why they were hunting for oil, we've got to figure out. Right? Why? That's what anything you have to figure out. Right? I want to take rid of the. Oh, we've got to find the oil. And they couldn't find, but they found one jar that was intact. Shahaya munach, that was hidden, and it had bechotmo shel Kohen Gadol. Not only did they find one jar of oil, there are probably lots of jars of oil knocking around outside, but it has the chatima, it had the signature, it had the seal of the Kohen Gadol. So it used to be that they used to have a very pure oil, shemen zayit zach, the Torah tells us, to light the menorah. There were other oils that were of a lesser quality, which came from the second or third pressing of the oil, of the olives. But when they would crush the olives, the first drip that came out, there was pure, there was no pulp, it was pulp free, yeah? And they would take that, and that would be the oil they would use to light the menorah. So this needed to have a hashgacha. It needed to have an OU symbol. Well, it wasn't an OU symbol, it was a Chaf Gimel, Kohen Gadol symbol, or whatever it was. That sealed it off. So they go inside and they find one little jar. However, one jar was just enough to last for one day. It was one jar per day. And these were pretty big bulbs inside there. The menorah had big bulbs inside there. And we had a problem. only enough for one day. Why is that a problem? Why is only one day of oil a problem?
It's longer than a day to make it.
Because, not 8 days, there's many answers to this question. But the main one is, it takes 4 days to travel to and 4 days to return with oil of this first pressing from the olives. And therefore, they had a problem. They had enough for one day, but they needed enough for 8 days in order to go and return with this new oil. That's how it's described. However, says the Rambam, Nasu bo nes, a miracle occurred. We're going to see this miracle is one of, this is very important. Listen very carefully. You got to hear this. This miracle we're about to see, that the holiday, one of the miracles, there's 2 miracles of Hanukkah. They don't know what the 2 miracles of Hanukkah are? We won a war. The few beat the many. And there was oil. And that's the one we really talk about. And the oil that was meant to last for 1 day lasts for 8 days. Now, there have been many miracles. If you look in Tanakh, Tanakh is full of miracles. Right? The Gemara is full of miracles. People are resurrecting the dead left, right, and center. There were tons of miracles. However, this miracle of the Hanukkah story is going to really be important and different in one very important way. And what is that? This miracle of Hanukkah we're going to see really is the last public miracle that happened for the Jewish people in history. So there were many miracles that happened before this point, revealed miracles. However, this one was an open miracle that was done in public. And not only that, really it was the last open display of Nes Nigla, as we refer to it. It's a revealed miracle that happened to the Jewish people. Nes Nistar, hidden miracles. That could be happening all the time. Right? The Purim version, the Nes Nistar, that's the Purim type of miracle, that'd be happening right up to date. But Nes Nigla, open, overt miracles, which are to that point, Jewish history was rich in open miracles, happening all the time. This was the last one. After this point, there was a breaking down of the spiritual system. It broke, and at that point, this was the last open miracle we had. That we're going to see is one of the reasons that Hanukkah stands out as the last time we see the light of Hashem coming to us through revealed miracles. Okay? Why miracles have to disappear at this time, or around this time, we shall see. Okay, so they find this one jar. It's got enough for 1 night. It lasts for 8 nights. Right? By the way, so how many nights of miracles were there? What? 7. Who said 7? Why? They had enough oil for 1 night. Therefore, the miracle night should only be 7. Is that a fair point? I mean, it's not a point, it's a question. This question has hundreds of answers. We're going to look at probably like 5, 6, maybe 7. There's hundreds of answers to this question. So write the question down, because it's considered a classic in Jewish thought. If there was enough oil for 1 day, and the oil lasted for 8 days, then really Hanukkah should last for 7 days, because that's the amount of miracle that occurred. Right? It's a fair point. So we've got to figure out how 7 becomes 8, and why 7 becomes 8. Yes? Sure. They had enough. The Rambam told us, the Gemara tells us they found enough oil for 1 night. They needed it for 8 nights, so the oil lasted for 8 nights. So, 8 nights a miracle. No, not 8 nights a miracle. 7 nights a miracle, because the first night they had oil. So the first night was not miraculous. It lasted for 8 nights. That's impressive. So we're not going to answer that right now, but we're going to have to find answers to that question, because the rabbis make a big deal out of it, and they figure out what's up with 8. Why is the number 8 so important over here? That we set it for 8, right? But why? It's going to represent that. But why? What actually happened? What was the nature of the miracle? What's the nature? Is it that the oil lasted for 8 days? Was it that they divided the oil into 8 parts? So even the first night was a miracle. Was it that the fact they found the oil miraculous in and of itself? Because remember, they'd overrun the entire temple, destroyed all the oils, and 1 oil jar managed to last. Maybe that's the miracle. So we're going to see there's many answers to this. But we're going to have to revisit this again. Says the Gemara something really unusual. So that was that first year. The first year, the Hashmonaim, these Kohanim, these Jews jump into the temple. They push out this Greek army through some form of warfare, and they find the oil and they light it. L'shana acheret. However, the following year, now this is important. Why we start talking about the following year? Kavuyim ve'asuim yomim tovim b'halal v'hoda'ah. A year later, when they got to the same time of year, they celebrated that victory of a year before by making these days of praise, of Hallel, and Hodah and thanksgiving. And that's Hanukkah. That's what Gemara tells us. A year later, same time year came around, they're like, oh, let's celebrate. And they celebrated for 8 nights. And they made it a time of thanksgiving and meals, and they're very, very grateful. Why they have to wait a year? We'll have to figure that out as well. All right? But that's what the Gemara tells us. So the Rambam, in the Laws of Hanukkah, page 85, chapter 3, verse 1, he is going to give us a little bit of background information as to what was actually happening at this time. And he says like this. B'Bayis Sheni, during the Second Temple, Kishemalcha Yavan, when the Greeks ruled over Israel, remember that started with Alexander the Great came in, he conquered, he had a good relation with the Jews, we'll see when he meets Shimon HaTzadik, Simon the Righteous, he dies very early, people take over, not good. Okay, we'll go into who they are and what they did that was not good. But this was not an easy time for the Jewish people by any stretch of the imagination. Okay? Says the Rambam, during this time, the Greeks, not Alexander, but the Greeks came afterwards, Gazru Gezeret al Yisrael, they made a lot of decrees on the Jewish people. Right? It wasn't just that they captured the temple in Jerusalem and defiled it and made it into a place of Avodah Zarah. That wasn't the problem. Well, it wasn't the only problem, I should say. The other problem was, they made decrees against us. Ubatlu datam, and they wanted to destroy our religion. The Greeks wanted to destroy it. They didn't want to kill us, says the Rambam. They wanted to kill our religion. Is that the same? Is that not the same? We'll see. And how do you stop the Jewish religion? What exactly are you going to do? Well, this is a thing that happened many, many times. Even actually in the Purim story, we see they did the same thing. Maybe not such a big level. But they stopped the learning of Torah. They forbade Torah. Right? This has been used by many nations against the Jewish people. Number one, you want to stop Jews being Jews? No Torah learning. Okay? Over mitzvot. And then even if you don't study Torah, you cannot perform mitzvot. Upashtu yadam b'mononam, and they took their money. And they took their daughters. Right? They defiled their daughters. They grabbed them. This is the piece that the Gemara spoke about. And they went into the Heichal, into the temple. So they've stopped Judaism. Right? They're taking our money. They're treating us unfairly. And then they enter the Heichal, the temple. Why? Why is that important? Why are they after the temple? Why do they enter the houses? They defiled it and they violated it. V'timut hatarot, and they made impure that which is pure. V'salim Yisrael, and the Jewish people were very, very upset. This was a very difficult time in Jewish history. The Jews were suffering greatly. Mo mipneihem, right? Ulachatzum lachas gadol, and they were under tremendous pressure and hardship. Ad shiricham aleim elokei avosenu v'oshia miyad v'tzilam, until Hashem came along, the God of their fathers, had pity upon them and saved them. Hashem saved them at this time. Okay? So you would have thought the saving would be that we were able to kick them out, which is the miracle of the few Jews, scholars, not exactly weightlifters. Right? This wasn't managed to push out the Greeks. Right? The Hashmonaim, from the Maccabees, they were able to push out the Greeks. That's it. What has that got to do with oil? Right? Seemingly, the Rambam doesn't mention over here. Numbers, not make a big deal out of it. Okay. I want to continue. The next piece is going to take me at least 25 minutes. So we're going to stop over there as an introduction. I'm going to give you back your midterms, and then we'll pick this up, God willing, on Wednesday. Good job.